organization's primary mission and key objectives in terms of addressing violence and exploitation against like innocent sex workers in Singapore?
So I mean, the primary mission is to um, create a more. Well, give me a moment. Let me word for word so I don't get it wrong. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
You tell her back lah. You also don't like her. So easy, right?
yeah, I'm in the middle of an interview. Please,
Yeah,
please.
don't worry, don't worry.
You don't need people to
No,
like
no, I'm
you,
talking to the rest of the office.
Oh,
right? You don't need people to like you in order to live in this place. Me also like that. You don't like me, sorry ah. So bad. So my appearance make you so kawit, right?
Hi.
You can go and dance.
Hello.
Okay, yes. So yeah, I mean the plan is to create
I'm so sorry that you don't like me.
eradicate violence right
I think I
within
make our life difficult, right?
within the Singapore sex industry, and what this looks like is to empower sex workers, and also I mean mainly first is to empower sex workers. Two is to equip them with the necessary knowledge. So that means creating access to justice, also supporting them in other ways, through social and through social and health means. Yeah.
okay. Let's ask the next question.
Okay, so like when I looked up Project X, right? So generally this organization has been like here for quite a while. So what were the challenges that you guys faced initially when Project X once started before? Maybe like prejudice from public, or like people asking like why do you do this like for them? So what was the main reason Project X came about?
So I think initially with our founder Wong Yok Leng, she realized that the sex worker community was a very marginalized community, and that they were a community that was deeply misunderstood because of the stigma around sex work. So the easiest way that we could reach out into the community was to give out condoms, because this is a necessity in the field. And through that, we were able to create rapport. So initially, it was just Wong Yok Leng, and then afterwards, Vanessa came on board. But both of them were not sex workers. So we only had a breakthrough to the community once we had sex workers on board. So we have Kak Wan, a former sex worker, and afterwards we had Sherry, and we were very lucky because Sherry was front-facing. She was able to become the face of the community, and that way, when sex workers saw that there was somebody who was brave enough to speak on behalf, they were able to tell their stories to her, through her, and more people were able to understand that no matter the profession, they have rights. And that was how we managed to get through to the organization. Of course, I think funding in the at first was a bit hard, but I think over the years we have garnered support from private donors, and more people understood the cause. And I think the more they understood the concept of harm reduction, that no matter what, the sex work industry is going to happen, whether you push it underground or whether it's like legalized, it's still going to happen. So what we can do is to ensure that people are able to do their work safely. And one of the ways is through providing condoms, through giving them free STI checks. These are things that are necessary to the job.
All right, that's actually a good initiative, because when I looked up Project X, right, there was this video with Sherry being the face in the video, showing us that you guys provide free STI checkouts for these sex workers. So I feel that this is really something that is noteworthy, because like a lot of people may feel fearful when they go to like actual medical places. So I feel that Project X really provides that platform for a bit of an anonymity and also more confidence for these sex workers to approach. So yeah. All right, moving on to the next question. Ashwin.
Yeah. what I really want to know from like you guys, right, is how can individuals in the community contribute to raising awareness for like this change that you guys want to bring about?
By community, do you mean the sex worker community or like the allies or just the general public
Okay,
involved?
so because right now, as we've seen, right, Project X has a very heavy what do you see? When we talk about allies, right? We look at Pink Dot for once. You have
Mm,
such a heavy presence in Pink Dot, and then you have like gained a lot of like supporters from being allies. So,
mm,
in this case, I think what Ash means is like just the normal public,
Yeah,
uh,
correct. The
the
normal
general
public.
public.
general public. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Right.
what can they do, maybe to just in the very least contribute or like help in any small way that they can.
So I think just like the very first acknowledgement that sex work is something that I think is still quite a hurdle for the general public to get over because there's so much morality attached to that fact. It's a fact. Sex work is work. People go to work, people get paid for it. It's a service that is created because there's a demand. But I think because a lot of people are not able to get over the moralistic implication of such a thing, and because they think that when we acknowledge sex work is work, it is something that may encourage more people to become sex workers. It's not necessarily the case because sex is also hard work. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
just acknowledging that it is a form of labor that happens, and people do it for a vast range of reasons. People can do it because it's for survival. People can do it because it's um, something that they are genuinely just interested in and they enjoy. People do it because maybe for mental health reasons they are not able to work a 9 to 5 job, and this affords them more flexibility. So I think the very first thing to do, or rather the first hurdle um, that the general population needs to get over for the cause to for there to be better support for the cause is just acknowledging that sex work is work. Yeah.
okay, like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think afterwards, of course, with regards to conversations, I think allyship is, of course, if you if you see something, do something. Something that we've been doing a lot last year was to actually analyze how mainstream portrayal of sex work affects society's perception. I think last year we did a series called Reading Red on our social media, where we went through all the different movies in Singapore that have depicted sex work, all the different books that have mentioned sex work. We looked at it. And then, of course, this is in comparison to how every time the newspaper reports a raid, you would see how these images are being constructed. I think it's worth for the general public to question the narratives of sex work and how it's being portrayed. That doesn't really allow, I guess, the human side. These are people working in the job, and I think most times these narratives don't necessarily allow people to be human. Dehumanizing and sensationalized. So I think first of all, just acknowledging that sex work is work. Secondly, to question the narratives that surround sex work and how they've been, and how they might dehumanize or sensationalize the profession itself.
Okay, okay, thank you. Nash, you want to ask this next question?
Okay, so talking about like the authorities, right? Like we're seeing these raids happen. So has ever any situations where Project X, you guys work closely with the authorities or like other healthcare organizations, or have you really ever faced problems from these authorities, like maybe the police or the government themselves? Were there any such situations that ever happened that you are, legally obliged to can share?
So I mean, I think I can only speak based on experience lah.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 years that I've been here, I think we have seen an increase towards sensitivity trainings. So I think healthcare institutions, they are more interested to learn how to um, make the healthcare experience more uh, encompassing and being more sensitive to the sex workers' needs, like how to sort of like be able to ask questions that pertain to health without necessarily outing the sex worker. So there have been a few collaborations like that. With regards to, I guess, justice, I think we have, of course, every other year we sort of do like release a statement on International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, and we do give out our recommendations. So I think maybe those posts on our blog post would speak better with how we um, navigate, or rather uh,
Posture.
seek cooperation by giving out recommendations. Yeah, knowing that people do read and go to us for feedback whenever stuff like this happens. Yeah. There's a last year Vanessa wrote a social media post. Our executive director, she wrote a social media post about Orchard Towers and how law enforcement agency can collaborate with the entertainment industry, and I think that's something that maybe you can have a look at. I think that will answer your question as to what is our approach um, in trying to work together with uh, law enforcement. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, in a topic of like working with like people and organizations and that, does this like, does Project X organization, collaborate with any other NGOs, government agencies, community organizations, to achieve what you guys want to?
Yes, for sure. I mean, the very basic one very, like, I guess, mainstay collaboration that we have throughout the years is our collaboration with Action for AIDS. So Action for AIDS helps to they have this thing called mobile testing service every month. So they do outreach to different key populations, and we have collaboration with them. And our key population is obviously the sex worker community. So by collaborating with Action for AIDS, we are able to provide free anonymous testing for HIV for sex workers. Yeah, so the vans go to different red light districts lah, and we do
Okay,
testing.
okay.
We do it twice a month
Mhm.
in two different red light districts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
also have a collaboration with. We also work very closely with DSC with regards to the STI testing
Mm.
for sex workers. Yeah, and so we are able to conduct this in such a way that like these key populations are being addressed in a sensitive manner that takes care of like their discretion,
Mm.
especially with
Yeah, I
regards to
think discretion is a
infection.
very, very important thing in terms of like, taking these kinds of tests. Nash?
Okay, so let's look at the sex workers. Now that we're going, past COVID-19, right? Were there
Mm.
any like prevalent issues that sex workers come forward to you with, like, you know, to like ask for support? Like, what were some of the key like similar challenges that they face, coming out of COVID-19, or when they were going through COVID-19 and stuff? Because I know
Right.
that it was. I mean, like, since with the circuit breaker and everything, sex work was, some of them, a lot of them actually transitioned mostly to online, right? As you can see, like a lot of influx of like OnlyFans creators. So these sex workers, how were they like affected coming out of COVID-19? If any challenges were faced.
Right. So I mean, right during the COVID period itself, right, when people were not allowed to work, we actually launched a fundraising campaign. Yeah, and we had it's called the Emergency Safety Net Fund, where we provided financial assistance to about 90 sex workers. Yeah, so we um, gave them an amount of money that they were able to use lah in the meantime. I think after the COVID, obviously, I think you would probably have already seen the CNA interview as well, where a lot of the sex workers working in the KTV scene were being scapegoated for the spread, for the outbreak of COVID, right, within the KTV. That's something that we also sort of like were approached to give our thoughts on, and we actually did help some sex workers as well. That was featured in the documentary. Um, a lot of the foreign workers who were stuck. There were people who were stuck here, and we did had to help some people get back. Um, there were one or two, I believe, that we helped to get back to their country. Think only in recent time then we have seen more of the foreign girls come back for work, but it was quite a difficult time for everybody during COVID. Yeah. The major lifting of I think it was in April last year. Major lifting of the measures
Hmm.
Mm.
really helped encourage a lot of the migrant sex workers to come back. But because there was a clamping down, especially in Orchard Towers, so a lot of these businesses um, were being pushed out to other places, and because of that, um, it's been a little bit more difficult for us to not difficult, it's just a bit more challenging because now we have to trace the movement of all the workers. So as back then when it was more centralized, it was easier for us to provide services. It was easier for them to come to us because we were in the same building, but because of Orchard Towers um, closing down, uh, the workers have been dispersed. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, being in the sex workers industry and all of that, how do you feel about the so-called like sex working game being moved online now? Where last time, if you wanted to, indulge in the services available, you have to actually come down and talk face to
Mm.
face, find out. But right now, things like that are readily available on Telegram. There's online sites like OnlyFans. What are your thoughts on it? What are your opinions on it?
Well, I mean, it really depends on what works better for the sex workers, right? Online forms of adult services have been around since like the internet was created. There are many different types of online sex work. You can be an escort, you can be an adult content creator, you can be in the kink scene, right? You can be dominatrix. So it really depends on what type of worker you are, what type of services you're able to provide, because some of the people online they work by um, so they can charge more for less, versus like in real life, and within the red light district where you may work more by volume, right? So you have more customers but for a shorter period of time, and like one as in each customer is like for a shorter period of time, but you have to work with more customers, whereas online, maybe you can meet one or two customers per month but you charge them more. So it really depends on the needs of the needs and what kind of services the sex worker wants to provide. There are people who work in both methods. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. And actually online also, from what I understand, people are able to do like sort of maybe a call first, a background check first, before meeting. So this is another layer of screening that you can do before meeting. Yeah,
And do
pros
you
and
think,
cons.
yeah, do you think like with this online sex worker industry being as like established as ever, I would say it has affected the so-called economical like income where those sex workers that don't have these facilities to like does that put them at an advantage disadvantage and things like that, because not all of them might have the equipment that these online sex workers do have.
I think they are reaching out to different crowds.
Hmm.
Yeah, they are
Okay.
reaching out to different demographics. That's for sure. Yeah.
Nash?
Okay, so let's pretend like let's say we don't know anything about Project X because
Mm,
clearly me and Ash already researched Project X, right?
yeah.
We know that you guys have programs. So, in a standpoint of let's say I do not know what Project
Mm,
X programs have, right? So, could you like give us a gist of the programs that we can volunteer
mm,
with Project X? To
mm,
help with the cost.
yeah. So we have the sexual health outreach. Okay, so let me just if you were to like a log line, right? Okay, let me give you a
Yeah.
log line.
Thank you.
So Project X is is the only human rights based nonprofit organization in Singapore
Mm-hmm.
that provides social, legal, as well as health services to sex workers. Yeah, so there's a sexual health outreach, which we do every single day. We go out to different red light districts, and we reach out to sex workers and tell them about safer sex, right? So how they can protect themselves. And then we have the casework, which is the legal, like if anybody needs legal help, legal aid, we are able to give them advice. We are able to link them up to a lawyer if they want to access justice. And then we also have the social aspect, which is our community events. We have community events every month. We have counseling, we have art therapy. We also now have this new program called the Next Step program to diversify the skill sets that sex workers have. So for some sex workers, it is very much a viable way to live, but maybe some of them are in thinking about transitioning or having a day job, transitioning to another job. I mean, or they want to have a day job, or they just simply want to have a side hustle on top of sex work. They're able to access our the services of our social worker. It's called the Next Step program. Yeah,
Okay,
Okay.
Ash,
yeah.
any questions?
Um,
Okay, so while Ash is thinking of a question, I mean, another question that I would like to ask is that, moving forward, right now with as we see the rise of people being more acceptive of the LGBTQ community, sex work as
Mm,
well, because this can
mm,
we actually ask around in our own uh, class and also like people of our own age range. So we ask Gen Zs in general with how
mm,
they feel towards sex work and
mm,
being an ally of the LGBTQ community. Most of them are very accepting. Generally, it's
mm,
more of the older generation that feel a little bit like held back because they're raised in a certain way and
mm,
being Gen Zs are more accepting. So what future efforts will Project X will actually moving forward? What is hold on. Let me rephrase this properly. Hold on.
yeah.
So with more Gen Zs being more acceptive, right?
Mm,
What is the next approach or next step Project X will actually do programs for in the future? Yeah.
mm. I mean, of course, I think public education, I think is very important to us. As much as we think that certain generations are more open and accepting,
Mm,
I think it's also worth questioning about who gets access to this information. Because you could be like Gen Z but never heard of Project X before.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think part of that public education is to really make our information more accessible to people. So I mean, going forward into 2024, we are looking at creating more video content. Going into social media networks like TikTok, where sometimes the content goes outside of the algorithm, um, and also I think just sort of really humanizing the
mm,
the the narratives. Um, I mean, sex worker stories are so diverse. Like, we really approach the narratives that are shared with us in a holistic approach. Like, for example, last year, the post that did really well was about Mother's Day, because, a lot of people can relate to um, being a mother and wanting to provide. And then when the element of like doing that through sex work, then it complicates that
Mm,
moral element, right? Because you
yeah.
are essentially just providing and doing your best to provide. Um, yeah. So I think on the front of public education is something that we want to work towards. I mean, we have been doing it for a long time, the public education, but I think now more than ever, making the content more accessible.
And at a bigger scale as well.
Not so much bigger scale, but just I think in a more, I guess, when I say accessible, maybe the content is more approachable.
I
Yeah.
see.
Okay.
Because sometimes the information around it can get very can get quite heavy very
Yeah.
easily. And if you see, because we base our advocacy through evidence based, right?
Yeah.
So we realize that while our posts are very info packed, we have been realizing that there has been a shift towards video content, and because of that, people would prefer to see a face, which might prove challenging for us because not a lot of our members are able to be front facing. So it's just something that we have to figure out in the long run. But absolutely, public education is our
Main
concern,
main main focus lah right now.
main focus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when we were actually researching a lot of statistics that
Mm,
about sex work in Singapore, generally a lot of the articles bring us back to Project X. So like that is really a good uh push when people really want to find out about the history of sex work in general and
mm,
as well in Singapore. It always
mm,
redirects back to Project X because they always have like articles with statistics and also the
yeah.
history. There was one we actually did a video about like the history of sex work in Singapore,
Mm,
and lo and behold, when I looked up, the first top article was a Project X article talking about boogies in the past and
yeah.
Changi
Yeah.
Village and stuff. And this is like, I feel that it's really a good step if people were to research, and when they research, they get to know about the organization, and potentially people will spread the awareness through word of
Mm,
mouth.
mm.
uh okay, so Ash, do you have any questions following up?
I feel like, you guys being the professionals would make a better sexual education for MOE than the teachers do
That's
right
that's
now.
honestly correct, because when we ask around in class whether the sex education and talk in secondary school, was it enough, then most of them were like, no, we just skim through it. So yeah, I feel that what Ash said is true lah.
And I feel like that there's something to do with, like, the thing that was mentioned where the first step is to acknowledge that sex work is
Is
actually
work.
work.
Yeah.
Where, people in the Asian culture still kind of like, have this taboo kind of knowledge or surrounding the fact that sex is actually something that people do and things like that. So I
Mm.
feel like, maybe in the future when you guys are like even more established and things like that, you guys could reach out to MOE and things like that, because I feel like you guys would give better lessons than whatever the hell they're giving us when we were in secondary school.
Right. Yeah, I think the term that you are looking for and thinking of is comprehensive sexuality education.
Mm.
If you want to read up more about it, World Health Organization has done a very good. They have a whole page dedicated to comprehensive sexuality education. So, I mean, with regards to sort of maybe bridging the conversation, right, between sex work and reaching out to the general population, one of the methods that we do for Pink Dot specifically, because like at Pink Dot you have children, right? Like, how do you talk about sex work to children?
Yeah.
So I think being able to provide age appropriate information. Um, Last year we asked about consent. So consent is a very
Yeah.
basic like that's the baseline, right,
Yeah.
for sexuality, and how that is something that even if you're not a sex worker, you're able to understand. But our attitude towards consent on the, I guess, the wider society and how that impacts sex workers is something that we bring the conversation back to. Yeah. So I mean, thank you for pointing out. Yeah, I mean, of course, like, yeah, is the workers know the workers are the best people to talk about sexuality education.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we can almost wrap it out, but I have to ask this one
Mm,
question, right? So
mm,
with as comparison to back then, like the LGBTQ community, with the drag
mm,
queens and stuff, are you happy?
mm,
In your opinion, are you happy? Like, are you really glad that? How glad are you? Sorry, now that more places are more accepting of these performance to be held. Because recently I went to one at the projector at Skip. I
mm,
think they had an event
mm.
there. I went to watch, and I felt like they were very welcoming and stuff. So how do you think these spaces, more spaces? What's your feeling on more spaces being open for, more generally being an ally to the community, allowing performance like this to happen in Singapore, because people are very conservative, and now we have more of these performances. So, what are your opinions on it?
If I may just clarify, with Project X, we also do outreach to cisgender workers as
Mm.
well. So there are a lot. I mean, in the past, a lot of transgender women turned to sex work because it was the only viable career option, and I think we do outreach to a sizable transgender sex worker population as well. I think with regards to, I guess, um, perceived openness within the society. Um, I think it's a good step. Definitely a good step. More people are able to be more visible, and I think the moment, well, visibility is not the end all. I really genuinely believe that sometimes visibility is not the answer, but to have people who are able to speak up more, I think that's very important. So that way, the narratives are more diverse. Um, Mimanda Ngozi Adichie, who's not Singaporean, she's African. So she has a very great TED talk about the danger of a single narrative. And that is something that informs sort of like, because I do the social media planning,
Mm.
and I do sort of approach sex workers with regards to platforming their stories. It's very important to us that we have very diverse stories. We approach different nationalities, we approach different ethnicities. No two transgender sex workers have the same experience. A cisgender person who works online versus a cis person who works in a massage shop would have a very different experience as well.
Of course.
Um, yeah, so um, I think the one, if I think maybe what the phenomenon that you're experiencing is sort of having dedicated spaces,
Mm.
because again, like I said, not everybody will experience these spaces for sure.
Of
Yeah,
course. Of
you are
course.
probably there because maybe you have a friend who's like that,
Mhm.
or you're supporting somebody, but the general population still may not necessarily have that access yet.
Yeah. I get
Yeah.
you. One more thing before we wrap this up.
Mm.
So obviously we're writing a profile piece on you, and with the article we need to like have it accompanied with some pictures, maybe like 3, 4 pictures.
That's
Is there
correct.
any pictures that you guys would be willing to send to us that you would want to be included in this profile piece?
Like me specifically, no, right? Like you're talking about the
The
organization.
organization,
The
yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
yeah. If
Yeah,
you
sure.
want to be included,
Sure. I mean, I can.
I think you can send it to my email. I'll just
Yeah.
send it to
and don't worry about this like being posted anywhere public or what. It's just like for school
Mm.
purposes. But
It's
if
for
you
school, lah, right? It's an
yeah,
assignment.
yeah.
but if you do want like a copy of the article when it's done, we can send it over to you as well.
We'll
Yes, that would
we'll
be
we'll we'll
great.
send you the website as well because we'll be doing it and putting it on a website for like a
Yeah,
multimedia
correct.
story. Like
Okay.
it's our own website. It won't be like
Right.
public, so it's just in
The
general.
website can only be accessed with a link.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can.
so it's
Yeah.
a private website. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll look. Um,
Okay.
Maybe what can happen is you can give me the article first, then I can send to you the pictures that accompany it.
Okay, that works.
Yeah,
Definitely,
yeah.
yes.
That fits the theme better. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Is
okay,
there
okay.
any way we can contact you, or should we keep it by email? Because sometimes the
Via
email.
email.
Via
Okay.
email. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You can just email me. Yeah.
All right, then I'll just loop Ash in as well in the CC. In
I
the
think if I'm not wrong,
Next, you have the email.
my email has like my phone number. You can telegram me there.
Okay, yeah, that I feel
Yeah.
like that's a more effective communication.
is it the 9060? Is it?
8012.
Oh, the other one. Okay, yeah, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about it. We can end the interview here. First and foremost, we will really love the fact that you guys accommodate to our really tight schedule. So
Yeah,
we thank you.
sorry.
We really thank you again for coming to this,
Help us. Yes.
interview in this short time lah. So we really
Do you
blessed.
have to like present the work to
On
like your
Wednesday.
class or something?
Yeah, we have
On
to.
Wednesday.
Yeah, because we're future journalists, so we have to like churn
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
articles immediately after this.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Can.
Thank you very
FF.
Thank you
much.
so much.
We'll
Have a
text
good
you soon.
day.
You
Yes.
too. Bye
Yes.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ooh,
Okay lah.
35 minutes.